Hello, and welcome to Super Mario Words, where we talk about random Mario things and rank them.
Hello.
I'm Sen,
And I'm Drew.
and today we're going to talk about the iconic Fire Flower.
Yes.
So,
A perfectly normal thing for once.
is it?
No.
If you aren't aware, which means you probably somehow know literally nothing about the Mario series, except what we've told you about, and let me tell you, that is a intoxicating and delightful position of privilege to be in. So
That's the best way to learn about Mario.
I don't know if it's possible for anyone to be listening to it who's literally never heard of the Mario series, but I hope that someone does some far in the future. Anyway, the Fire Flower is a power-up. It's a flower with kind of a white center with eyes on it.
Yeah.
And kind of a like yellow and red circular fringe. It doesn't really have petals.
Yeah.
And when Mario touches it, his clothes turn red and white.
Yeah.
And he gains the ability to shoot fireballs.
Out of his hand?
It is a power-up in many Mario games. In many games, it holds firmly the place of, like, the kind of second-rate one below the one that lets you fly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the Fire Flower
But
is.
still always nice to have.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's better than not being able to shoot fireballs.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our first discussion question. So how does Mario acquire acquire the power from the Fire Flower? Because he touches it, and his clothes change color.
Yeah.
And
That's an interesting thing.
it raises it. Like, what is he doing with it?
Yeah.
Does it? He just touches it, and he just.
Yeah, does he touch it and absorb its energy, or does he have to, like, eat it? I remember way back in the day, in one of the, like, choose your own adventure books based on the first couple games, they were explicitly eating the fire flowers and sometimes just like eating them as part of a regular meal.
That's interesting.
They were definitely eating the mushrooms that way, which makes a little more sense.
I'm checking for the word "eat" in the article.
There you go.
Feature feather defeated. No. Apparently Yoshi can eat fireballs.
Okay.
In a similar manner to how Mario and Luigi have both eaten and absorbed mushrooms through their games, there's much controversy over whether Mario must eat a fire flower or simply touch it to become Fire Mario. Although most games make fire flowers simply disappear upon contact with Mario, this comic shows that Mario does indeed eat fire flowers to use their powers. Mario even reveals something about their taste, claiming that fire flowers taste disgusting, but if I eat them I can shoot fireballs. That is the claim made from a Club Nintendo comic. Super Mario Verloren in der Zeit, which sounds German,
Yeah.
reveals that fire flowers have existed since the Stone Age.
Okay.
However, of course, our canon will override what this kind of niche side material is, as opposed to our insanely popular podcast,
Yeah.
which can be considered an authority. So there's definitely, like, if you think of a flower does something to you, what do you
Yes.
need to do for that to happen?
Yeah.
Eating it would be kind of the reasonable guess.
Yeah.
I think that would be...
I mean, that does make sense, you know? Especially considering it is usually consumed when you use it. Now, the thing is, actually, though, in some games, Mario just holds the flower and it shoots fireballs.
I think that's just in Smash.
In Smash, but also in, a couple of the RPGs.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like Paper Mario probably does that.
Yeah.
So that, we didn't end up putting that discussion question in, so we can just kind of make a note of it now.
Yeah.
It does seem that the fire flowers can independently shoot flames.
Yeah.
They are kind of like miniature flamethrowers.
And to be fair, that might just be what Mario is doing in all the games.
Yeah.
It doesn't explain how it makes his clothes change color?
I don't think... I feel like the idea of, like, he does something with a flower and it vanishes and the power becomes his is something that I feel like the visual language of... I feel like the visual language of the games would be too abstract to use that to communicate that he's holding the flower.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Because,
That's
like,
true.
if they wanted to show that, by the time of, like, Galaxy or such, they could have depicted him holding the flower.
That's true. Him touching it, it disappearing, and him changing color is a consistent well into the modern day.
Right. Now, there are a couple other options besides eating it that come to mind.
Yeah.
I mean, he could smoke it.
Well, I don't think he'd have time to do that on the battlefield.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
Similarly, like, it could have pollen that is the actual power-up.
The other idea I had in mind is if you might, like, crumple it up, like, powder it.
Oh, yeah.
And then you absorb it that way.
Yeah.
Maybe it just kind of, like, the powder just kind of settles on you and you get its powers.
That would explain why it's out of your hands specifically.
Yeah, especially if the fire is a physical property of it.
Yeah.
Like, when I think of flowers that do things.
Yeah.
Like, a flower that's poisonous,
mm-hmm.
if I eat it, I don't become poisonous. I die.
Well, you to be fair, there are some animals that eat poisonous plants in order to become poisonous.
That's true, but that takes longer.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you think of, like, if I, like, powdered a poisonous flower and just kind of, like, put it in a blow dart or something.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, okay, I could use this to poison. So the idea, like, eating it, when you really think about it, doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
So much as you can kind of, like, squeeze the fire out of it.
Exactly. And I mean, it would make sense if there is some magic involved in its biology.
Mm.
And it could be, like, dripping, like, magical juice or something onto your hands.
Don't like that phrasing much.
Or how about spreading magical pollen onto your hands?
Something like that, probably.
Yeah. But yeah, that makes sense. It's whatever it is, it comes from inside the fire flower, it's sticky onto your hands, and you can use that to fire.
Yeah. There's not really any good explanation for why it changes the color of his clothes, though.
Maybe whatever the stuff is gets on his clothes.
Or maybe he just has, like, some kind of, like, Incredibles style super suit
that would make sense.
Responds to changes in his body.
Especially if we consider, like, the size change from the super mushroom cannon. He would have to have something that would adapt to that, or it would have to be something magical that just inherently changes that.
I wonder if this says something about Mario himself. Because when we see Mario and how he acts and his powers, his appearance, his clothes, his outfit is very responsive to his abilities.
That is true.
Like, he grabs a feather or a leaf. He grabs a leaf and he has, like, a tail and ears on his cap.
Yeah.
If he picks up a cloud flower, then he gets, like, a cloud outfit.
Yeah.
And maybe, like, there's just kind of something intrinsically kind of fluid about Mario's appearance.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's possible that's why his clothes change. It's because but everyone else's clothes does that too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, not only Fire Luigi, but in later games you get Fire Peach and
I think that there's just kind of fucking magic everywhere.
Yeah. I think it's just fucking magic.
There's no real good explanation for that.
Yeah.
So all of the stuff I was just saying previous to that is just kind of bullshit.
But that's what people come to our podcast for, so it's okay.
Yeah, that's true. Are we satisfied with...
yeah.
All right.
Crumples it up, gets pollen or syrup on his hands.
Yeah. So number 2 is, like, what is the actual, like, physical effect of the flower? Like, how does it impact his body?
Well, okay, if we're assuming that it just gets on the outside of his body, it changes his clothes, but doesn't really change the body itself.
He still is, like, he's shooting fire from his hands, though.
Yeah, but maybe his hands are just, I mean, he does wear gloves.
He does wear gloves, yeah. And
maybe it's just a coating that can manifest a flame.
That makes sense. The game seemed to imply that it lasts indefinitely, which I'm curious about.
Yeah.
Like, you'd think that this would, like, wear off. And, like, in Smash and stuff, like, there's a limited amount of fire that comes out of it.
That is true. It's possible that in the games it does eventually wear off. It just doesn't, like, a single level or whatever, it just doesn't have the time period to...
There's also, like, how do I put this?
Mm-hmm.
If you take like a thing that and you just kind of like wring all of the stuff in it out,
Yeah.
then it comes out pretty quickly. But if he like actually like pockets it and just
Yeah.
kind of like takes pieces off
Mm.
and then just like rubs it on, he could probably keep the fire keep shooting a lot of fireballs.
Yeah, that makes sense. He's picking up a fire flower and just getting more fire as he needs.
Yeah, and then I guess when he gets hit, it just like flies out of his pocket.
Yes.
I
mean, whatever. The entire mechanism of Mario getting hit and losing power-ups is its own
Mario is just
subject.
and then an incredibly lucky person who like every single time he ever gets struck, it's literally like and then the bullet shot his locket thing. Like every single time, it's just the fire flower or the feather or whatever.
Maybe just like, I don't know. It's that I feel like there's something complicated here, but it's beyond the scope of this article.
Yeah, and I realize as we're discussing this, like this is going to be a very important episode because it's going to set the tone for how we interpret all future power-ups
That is true.
in lore. So right now we're saying it doesn't transform his body.
Yes.
It's just something he uses. It's a tool.
But I'm gonna leave open the possibility that other ones do.
That's true. I mean,
There's gonna be some things that are hard to interpret if they don't do that.
yeah. I mean, one of them turns him into a big rock.
Yeah.
Which maybe the difference is like flowers are tools and mushrooms are edibles.
I mean, that makes sense. Mushrooms. You eat mushrooms.
I feel like if we commit to that now, it's going to become a problem later.
We'll leave it up in the air.
All
Flowers are definitely tools.
All right. So, is that a satisfying answer to this second discussion question?
I'm pretty satisfied.
All right. So, discussion question 3. Are these flowers like cultivated by the Mushroom Kingdom, or are they wild flowers?
You know, I feel like part of the answer on this depends on what is the nature of things found in blocks. How did they get there?
That's a good question. A question that the series steadfastly refuses to answer.
Absolutely.
But I think we do kind of have to discard the original canon answer of the blocks are people.
Yeah.
For one,
Yeah.
it's weird and doesn't really make sense with the blocks being kind of like omnipresent features of the world.
Yeah.
And 2, it introduces a lot of casual murder to the Super Mario Brothers canon.
Yeah, like that. I thought that was weird when I was 6. So
I think we're gonna have to just accept that these are probably man-made structures.
definitely, like, there sometimes seem to be blocks that are explicitly there to hold things.
Right.
So we can assume that they're all like that pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
At the very least, the question mark blocks.
And like that's not that unusual.
Yeah.
Because like if you think about the built environment in the real world, there are some kind of structures out there that if you just kind of smash them open, stuff would fall out.
Mailboxes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of pretty much. You know, Mario just runs up and just punches an ATM. Just
Mamma mia!
money pops out.
Mario kicks open a vending machine.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's fair to say that these are built.
Yeah.
They're built things. I mean, they contain things like coins.
Yeah, but it doesn't. So that still doesn't resolve this question, though.
Yeah.
Like, are the fire flowers put in there? Like, are they grown to be put into blocks?
I mean, it seems pretty clear to me that blocks are pretty versatile. They can store pretty much any object
That's true.
that fits.
Yeah.
And some that don't. So I think that they're probably not. They may be cultivated, but they're probably not designed specifically to be put in blocks.
That's fair.
That's just kind of, I mean, probably when we are running through like levels and stuff, we're probably just like looting like military caches from Bowser.
That's true.
Now, see, when I think about the question of are fire flowers cultivated, what I think about is corn. Because the original plant, which I guess is maize,
Yeah.
before it was cultivated by humans, was just kind of like, it just had like a few kernels.
Yeah.
They were kind of shitty. We have like through an aggressive plan of
selective breeding?
plant eugenics.
No! That's the worst way you could have put that.
And yet, not incorrect.
Not incorrect.
We have turned these like pitiful plants with their tiny little bad kernels with like, I don't know, like a dozen of them per plant. And they've just gotten into these like huge swollen monstrosities, just kind of with like these juicy kernels bursting off of them in like rows of like dozens and dozens.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that if you live in a world with a plant that shoots fire,
and you want to make it a better weapon,
you want to make it a weapon, you're probably going to do the same thing.
That
right?
makes sense.
In kind of the same way that we think of like fruits and vegetables as natural in our world, but they're not.
Yeah. The infamous banana argument.
Yeah, the infamous banana argument, which we will not need to explain here.
No, we won't.
And you can kind of see it too, right? Like, they have these kind of like round sort of bulb heads.
Yeah, concentric circles.
That kind of look like they have been like cultivated to like maximize their kind of size and their richness.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the ancient ancestor of the modern fire flower probably was like a much smaller, weaker fire plant.
You know.
Yes?
I note that of all the games, Super Mario World has different art for the fire flower.
Oh yeah, that's totally different.
It's more tulipy, and that's orange all over with, it still has a pair of eyes, but they got like smiling eyes.
It's weird to me because you're right, and yet somehow I never really questioned that this was not the same kind of plant.
Yeah. But maybe this is either the ancestral form of, or some sort of different breed, at least, of fire flower.
It's got to be a different breed, because
like the same way, like the same plant ended up as kale and as broccoli.
And that makes sense, right? Because you're in in Yoshi's Island, where they probably have like different cultivars, is the word, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Of the fire flower, which seem to have essentially the same effect.
Yeah. So probably less like kale versus broccoli and more like different breeds of apples, you know, the Granny Smith versus the Red Delicious.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't the Red Delicious actually not very delicious?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all branding.
Have a Honeycrisp.
Do you think that like Yoshi's like market their kind of fire flowers as like exotic breed? Absolutely.
They're sold in like organic grocery stores.
Does that design appear in any other game?
I don't think so. I've been like scrolling through this page and I don't.
That's so strange.
Well, it appears in Super Mario Land 2, which came out right around the same time. But then it looks like they might have just completely abandoned it.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
What about...
Paper Mario. Paper Mario has a similar... actually, it's one that's slightly different than either. It has the same kind of forward-looking eyes and the same kind of concentric form, but definitely the tulip shape.
Yeah, I was going to say I had a memory of it because when you use it, it shoots fire out of its head.
Yeah. Yeah, like out of the top.
Oh, because so... But that one would shoot fire like upwards, whereas this one, the Fire Flower Classic, is clearly like a forward-facing thing. So it probably gives the same power if you like powder it, but as a whole weapon, it probably functions differently.
That makes sense. And also, it changes in the Paper Mario games later on too, to be more like the regular version that we usually see.
That's so strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are definitely got to be like two different cultivars of the fire flower.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So they probably did, maybe in some form they do exist as wildflowers.
Probably some version, but they're probably not as strong.
Does wild maize still exist?
I think so.
Hold on. Does wild maize still exist? maize. It still grows in the wild as an annual in Mexico and Guatemala.
Oh, there you go.
Interesting. So probably, yeah.
Yeah.
We've just never seen it. It probably isn't remarked upon because fire is weak enough that a lot of people don't even recognize it as a descendant of the fire flower or notice. It's
any random background plant in a Mario game could be a native wild fire flower.
Yeah, it could be. I think that we have to assume that they probably do exist.
Yeah.
So I think that we're probably satisfied with that answer.
Yeah, very much.
All right. So let's move on to our fourth discussion question, which is what is the ecology of the fire flower? Like, where does it fit in its environment?
Okay. Well, clearly these things, when wild, probably have some level of fire power, you know? And probably actually... Alright, so there are some plants that are designed specifically to spread their seeds in forest fires.
Okay.
Yeah, they open and shoot out seeds when exposed to high temperatures.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So you're thinking that this might have some function, like a symbiotic relationship with other kinds of flowers?
Absolutely. Yeah, perhaps it, when the original fire somehow helps spread its own, like, especially if it is pollen,
Yeah. Which makes me wonder about, like, do these things have some kind of, role in the burn cycle? That's what it's called, right?
Yeah, I think there's another name for it, but let's go with that.
Sure. the natural cycle of, like, small forest fires that we accidentally suppressed, causing increasingly larger fire crises.
Yeah.
That continue to this day and in fact worsen. Anyway, back to video games.
But yes, they help contribute to that cycle and help, set it off, thus clearing out underbrush and allowing, things to grow and keep going.
I'm wondering if we have actually ever seen a wildfire in a Mario game.
It's a good question. I wouldn't rule it out. It was the kind of thing that would make for an interesting level. But I can't, especially in something that's more like a Yoshi game or something that's less we are fighting Bowser's military-ish.
The idea of Bowser's military deliberately setting fires as a tactic kind of raises some disturbing images.
Yeah, it does.
So let's move past that.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the idea in considering in the real world that forest fires play a legit role in the health of forests, it's not entirely a wild idea to think of a natural source of forest fires that is a plant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which makes me wonder if there are there's a lot of weird plants and shit in the real world, and it makes me wonder if there's any actual plants that somehow can spark forest fires
just by themselves,
possibly with some kind of effect.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, hay bales can explode, so I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah, no, it's entirely possible.
Which, speaking of farm explosions, I think that
that's a good segue.
When we talk about ecology, we also have to consider that if you're cultivating a much more intensely fiery form of a flower, that safety concerns and management of the crop is gonna be a big concern.
Yeah, you're not gonna grow it like corn.
No, that would be the worst and most horrifying idea.
It a week in, you would just have, oof, no thank you.
I'm just imagining a fire flower field, and the toad farmer comes out one day, and there's just still a track through which all of the flowers have vanished. And he's like, Mario ran through here again.
Lord sakes, that boy Mario, if he gets about fire flowers again, backside full of buckshot.
All right. You took that in a pretty different direction.
I'm sorry. No, I'm not. I'm not sorry at all.
Mine was just a joke about how when he touches them, they disappear.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't want a cornfield of these.
No, you might they might be the kind of thing you grow in a greenhouse, or at the very least, like, in with other crops.
Maybe not. I mean, probably not too close.
Yeah.
Growing these would be a careful process, I think.
It would.
Actually, when I think of the idea of like having a big field of these, there's this video I found just randomly on YouTube a bit ago, where a guy builds a cannon out of matchsticks.
Ooh.
He just kind of like glues matchsticks together and makes them into a big cannon structure, and then he kind of shovels more matchsticks into it.
Oh.
And then lights the whole thing.
Oh.
And that's kind of what I imagine would happen. Is just all of the things that are meant to be on fire becoming on fire, and then all at once they're all fire. Except the size of a cornfield. So don't do that.
Yeah, but yeah,
especially like you don't need these as like a staple crop. They're not meant to be eaten. Like
they're more like a medicinal plant.
Yeah, you'd cultivate them in smaller numbers.
Yeah.
There probably are like special greenhouses or something specifically for growing them.
Yeah.
I don't think that you'd want to mix them with other plants because it seems like they could probably set fire to things.
I mean,
pretty easily.
Possibly plants that are immune to fire, which probably also exist in the Mario universe. I mean, some piranha plants are.
Are they?
Like the black ones that are invincible.
From where?
From Super Mario 3. You can like jump on them with the shoe.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, those aren't piranha plants.
They're not?
No.
Well, but they're plants.
They are plants, yeah. That's true. Those are fireproof.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd want to grow those in any numbers. But
that's fair, but
I get what you
mean. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah. I think that you'd probably, you'd grow them in small numbers.
Yeah.
And you'd want to keep them kind of fairly controlled. Like, you wouldn't want the pollen getting everywhere.
No. Oh, Lord. Definitely carefully controlled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think Mario has fireproof suspenders?
Probably. I feel like that would make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, not super fireproof, because like he can get hit by fireballs and die or lose a level.
That's true. Well,
but
you can have a bulletproof vest and you still don't want to get shot.
Yeah. But relatively fire resistant, at least.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm thinking like how much human control, like, because if you're holding a fire flower, you do something to it and it shoots fire.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like what is the activation? Because it seems like they're probably not always on fire.
Yeah. Like, for when you're holding it in your hand, those ones, it would make the most sense to, like, squeeze the stem.
So probably, I would imagine that in nature, if they, like, caught the wind or something, it would probably trigger the effect, maybe.
Yeah.
Some kind of, like, because if it's a part of its natural process, then something in nature would have to, like, activate it.
Yeah, definitely.
Either wind or, like, being stepped on.
I mean, yeah, having something fall on it. I mean, in the real world, the number one cause of forest fires is lightning,
Right. Which is, like, when you actually think about it, is kind of actually even more, like, metal than just having a flower that sets things on fire.
Right.
That's actually kind of cooler, actually.
Yeah.
It's just, like, electricity comes from the sky and there's all of a sudden shit's on fire. That's pretty great.
The wrath of the gods.
Why aren't we doing a podcast about like the lore of the real world? Actually, there's probably already a few of those out there.
Yes, they're called science podcasts.
I mean, but they tell the truth about real world lore.
Yes, and we tell the canon.
Yeah. All right. So I think that we've kind of dug into some interesting ideas here. We have proposed a physical explanation for how this thing gives Mario powers.
Yeah.
And we will continue to labor to ground the Mario universe in physically plausible and internally consistent mechanisms.
Absolutely.
Something that will work.
Yes.
And won't become a contradictory mess of nonsense.
Absolutely. Well, how would that even happen? Like, it's all canon.
Yeah. And canon never contradicts itself.
No, definitely.
Never.
Ranking.
Yeah, let's rank it. So let's pull it up. So we have our rankings. Honestly, I'm feeling... I feel like we did not tap into the juiciest lore yet for this one. But it is a very important and iconic object.
Like, I feel like it goes somewhere around paintings. Maybe below, but...
On the other hand, before we started this podcast, I already had an opinion of Fire Flowers, and it was... Look, if you're playing like Super Mario Brothers 3 or Super Mario World, and you're like, okay, there's a power-up in this box, and you just punch that thing, and a Fire Flower comes out, your immediate reaction is going to be, well, I could have used a feather instead.
Or a leaf.
Depending on the game. In Super Mario World especially, because the cape is fucking the most just OP power.
Yeah.
It's fucking nuts. So I don't know. It's on the plus side. It's iconic.
Yeah.
Recognizable very widely. If you showed someone this who wasn't really a gamer, there's probably a good chance they'd recognize it.
And you get why it's cool immediately.
Yeah, you shoot fire from your hands, which, in Smash and stuff, looks fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that kids can do on the playground really easily.
Yeah, like shooting Kamehamehas like Goku.
Yeah.
On the negative, it's not that good a power-up compared to, in most of the games compared to the one you could have instead.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of interesting lore to dig into it. It doesn't have the deep lore of the last thing we did, Dry Bones.
Yeah.
It's not deeply and metaphysically horrifying.
That's true. That is a negative point.
It is a negative point. And it just kind of feels like it doesn't... It's all around a very average thing. In, interest, in discussion, in game mechanics. The design is fine. It's not something that anyone really gets excited about.
That's fair.
And I would probably put it...
Actually, there is one potential deeply horrifying thing about it.
Oh?
Well, we established last episode that anything that has eyes is sentient.
Don't like that. I feel like it took precisely one episode for me to be hoisted by that petard, wasn't it? That didn't take long at all.
It did not. I was like, maybe we shouldn't, but you were like, maybe we should.
Look, this is the best possible result. The thing is,
yes,
that probably in the moral universe of Mario,
yes,
Fire Flowers probably are considered sentient, I don't know, like birds or like bugs.
Let's say bugs.
Bugs. They're clearly self-aware.
Are they?
Yeah, clearly. But there's no real moral weight to destroying them. No one thinks that a spider feels anything when you just swat it.
I do.
Well, maybe that's because you are just have too much feeling for all of the things, and
well, that is true.
You're connected to the empathy of the universe.
I am. That is true. So what you're saying is that Fire Flowers are sentient, and I should be personally concerned with that.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
But
we've solved that then.
There's not really a moral component to swatting a fly, I think.
Generally
there might be an emotional component depending on how much you like the bug in question.
Yeah.
But you're probably not thinking about it in terms of how it feels about that. Because bugs are dumb.
Bugs are dumb.
Do you think anyone would keep a pet fire flower?
Possibly.
It would be low maintenance until it burns your house down.
Yeah.
None of this has amounted to a ranking yet.
Yes, okay, ranking. But yeah, putting that to the very disturbing side.
Because I think of
I feel like
We can do kind of a direct comparison between Flood and the Fire Flower.
Yeah.
Because as a power that lets you do interesting things, and this is not just purely in terms of attack, because in Mario Galaxy you use it to like solve puzzles and stuff.
That is true.
Flood is a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
And
that's
before we even consider that it's a character that does talk to you and have feelings.
Yes, that is true.
Whereas
Flood does have moral weight.
Whereas Fire Flowers are just dumb like bugs.
Oh my.
So below Flood, I think.
Okay.
It's pretty safe.
Yeah, and honestly, the way you put it, below Dry Bones too.
Dry Bones is above Flood.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Well, what's below Flood?
Charge and Chuck.
What do you think?
I mean, we have on one hand the power up and the cultivation and the original like ancestral flower lore.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, we have the football lore.
That is true. Charge and Chuck's football lore is very interesting.
I feel like the lores are comparable.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like Fire Flowers are kind of like a little bit boring as power-ups. They kind of fall below your expectations. Whereas Charge and Chucks are kind of like average. They're kind of workhorse enemies. They kind of meet your expectations.
Okay.
Neither one excels.
Yeah.
But Charge and Chucks don't really like let you down.
That's fair. So just below Charge and Chuck, maybe? What is already below Charge and Chuck?
Shy Guy. I think that would be fine between Charge and Chuck and Shy Guy.
All right.
Man, never until I really stopped to analyze it did I realize I had such a low opinion of Fire Flowers, but like it's true. I do.
Yeah, it's true.
They're just kind of okay.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah. So in brief review, from top to bottom, we have Professor Elvin Gad, who's at the peak.
Yes.
Has been unchallenged so far. Not even close, really, for a good several episodes. Phanto.
Yes.
Paintings.
Was the one to get close.
Yeah. Matter Splatter Galaxy. Bunt. Dry Bones. Flood. Charge and Chuck. Fire Flower. Shy Guy. Mask Gates. And Stew.
All right. Very good.
And I'm pretty sure that I pluralized the wrong ones near the end there, but
it's fine.
I feel like we're gonna have to start dividing this list into tiers because it's getting long-ish.
Yeah.
But that's something to worry about next time. So I think it's time for us to say goodbye.
I'm gonna think of another catchphrase.
All right. See you next time.